I'm so lucky to have made those first steps from crawling to standing, to form my first words from nothing to writing and spelling, not having a clue of what kind of world I've been born into. The meaning of life would slowly and gradually fill my mind. As a skinny, shy child, I didn't understand the facts of life. It was invisible to me. I didn't know why I had to go to nursery instead of watching TV and playing with toys. I had noticed my clothes were changing as well as my looks. I also found friends at junior school and enjoyed fun times. At first you're alone and invisible to everyone, but slowly that fear passes and becomes visible. I loved my early years feeling happy, experiencing new emotions, new words, and being myself. I had my first nosebleed while running home from school after cutting my finger on a broken plate in my bag after a party. My finger and nose dripped blood all the way home. I had a few fights in my street, which were brief, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't look for explanations. I just did it, like jumping off walls. My street had so many great times and was never dull. All ages of kids often joined in for different games and sports and fun. This happened daily, after school, and all-day weekends. Being young was awesome until high school began. Seeing this big huge building lead into other sections, adding to this wide open plan structure, made me nervous and started a new fear to my happy life. My first year didn't start great. In fact, it was a nightmare. The lessons were hard. I couldn't understand anything they were saying, so I was dropped down to a lower class. This is when dark times began. It was scary going into a new class. Just a few months after knowing your friends from your previous class, what was worse was sitting next to a boy who would, over the months and years, bully me. Occasionally his friend would join him and pick on me in certain lessons. This made me mitch off school a lot with my friend to avoid being bullied. When I was in school, I really wished I was invisible. No more iron rod scarring my hand or whacking my head with a sharp edge of ruler anymore. Things got worse for me after that. In the 80s, this illness wasn't talked about much, and I never heard of it before. During the last year in school, Mum took me to different and many clinics around Cardiff late afternoons, so I would miss school sometimes. But what I hated about going to the clinics is that they would last a few hours talking about my problems and getting no answers. And after all that talking and catching 2 buses to get home, it would be after 6 p.m. and tired for nothing. I would still have to go to school and try to avoid the bullies. When I finally left school, I went to my doctor to find out why my breathing was bad, because all I was given is a nickname in terms at these clinics was a name bad heart. They looked into it more and told me I was having anxiety attacks, also known as panic attacks. It was unheard of and for me to have them, but they were caused by all the stress of being bullied and going to school. There wasn't medication for it, just a paper bag to breathe into. I still have that bag today. A simple thing as that does work and calms you down. From age 17, my attacks got worse. Mostly every night, after 7 or 8 p.m. they would start. Sometimes as late as 12 or 1 in the morning. They would take over an hour to calm down. It would start with heart racing fast, then pins and needles in hands, pacing up and down a corridor and rooms on different days. Depends where I was. Breathing would get tight, and short, deep breaths happened a lot. Also headaches would start, tightening of the throat, arms feeling numb, legs getting weak. Some people black out, but I didn't. My willpower saw it through the pain and used a paper bag for a while to get the oxygen back to the head. I would always sit down for at least an hour. Then tiredness would kick in. The next day always made me tired and weak, which didn't help as I had to go to work. A lot of times, small attacks happened at work and I had to force myself to hide it from my workmates, which was hard to do. On one occasion, my throat was seizing up on the bus and pretended to cough and rub their throat quickly next to a passenger. Then I had to get off the bus and walk home, roughly 20 minutes away. My panic attacks happened every day and night. At work, at college when I was in my 30s, my life was ruined for over 20 years because of those bullies. I couldn't go out anywhere with friends because it would start. No girlfriend, just work. That's all I had. I was lucky that my attacks didn't stop me from working. It was in my late 30s that I finally had medication to fix the problem, but it wasn't as easy as that. They had massive serious side effects. But for over a year I took them and I haven't had any more attacks. I've learned how to control my stress and depression. Also in my early teens, to help with my attacks, I learned that keeping fit would help with the breathing problems, so I did weightlifting at home. I hated being this skinny boy, so I bought a bench, barbell and weights and did workouts for a few years, which worked. My attacks still happened, but not as bad as before. But in my late 20s, I noticed the other side of the attacks. For many months, my throat was tightening up, finding it hard to eat and swallow as if something was blocking the bottom of it. I found out later on by the doctors that it was the nerves reacting to the stress. I couldn't switch off as easy as that, while knowing I would have another attack the next day or the day after. It became so unbearable that one day it stopped me eating my dinner. I had enough and told Mum that if I couldn't eat any more and stop my throat acting like it is, I would kill myself. The next day a miracle happened and someone up there in heavens must have wanted me alive, because my foot was fine but my head wasn't. It was like tunnel vision. While watching TV, all of my left side of my face stretched out like a tunnel to my right side, like a horror movie. This happened for months, and that's when I told the doctor, and he gave me these strong tablets. The big positive from taking these tablets was the fact that I went to basic English courses, studied psychology, then in college and university, helped friends out with their problems, and had the skills to help out at CAB Citizens Advice Bureau, but I didn't want to take that on the offer because I didn't really want too much stress loaded on my own head. A lot more nice things happened in my life in my late 30s, from having my first full-time paid job to driving a car, learning to take photos and filming events. I'm in my late 40s now. I don't forget my past. I'm still angry inside and not happy inside. I have to put a show on while with friends in being happy, but I'm not really happy. I've been alone since school, and I keep busy with hobbies to prevent depression again, so I can help care for my mum with dementia. I won't go into detail of my life in my 40s, that's for another time. I want you all to know how invisible I felt in my past. Did you feel the same? Invisible.